Can you use NLP to manipulate people to do what you want? Keep watching. This is Life Mastery Gym. I'm Damon, and I teach people just like you cutting-edge NLP processes to master your life and take charge of your destiny. So if that sounds good, make sure you click that subscribe button right down here so you can get these videos on a regular basis. The purpose of this video is to help people understand what manipulation truly is, how to protect yourself from being manipulated into doing something you don't want to do, and also to learn how to manipulate better. And I'm going to choose my words very precisely, as carefully as I can, but of course I'm not perfect. If you find yourself being very judgmental about what I'm saying and very angry about what I'm saying, what I would ask you to do is withhold judgment and be open. Listen to what I have to say, because it's definitely not bad. The last time I did a video like this, I got pretty much everyone angry with me. I got people angry with me who actually wanted to learn how to manipulate people to harm them, and because I don't teach that. And then I got people angry at me because I would even teach something like manipulation. I don't think they actually watched the video though. So listen carefully to what I'm saying, withhold judgment, but feel free to question anything that I say. I hope that you do. And also to leave a comment or a question in the comment section below. I will respond to you. And I also want to say, full disclosure here, I have been the manipulator and the manipulated. So I've received this from both sides. I've also observed many people manipulating other people. So I've got a three-part perspective, three-part perceptual positions on manipulation. So let's dive into this. I would like to address some of the lies and some of the myths about manipulation and NLP. Like, some people actually think that NLP was created by the military or like created by the CIA so that they could use it for mental warfare. And that's not true. I think where that comes from is one of the founders of NLP, John Grinder, was in the special forces. Supposedly he was a spy. There's not a lot of information out there about him and what exactly he was doing in the special forces, but we do know that he was in the special forces, but that was way before he and Richard Bandler created NLP. So it is not something that was created by the CIA. Throughout the years, I have heard some of the wildest stories about NLP and how powerful it is, and as far as manipulating people and getting them to do really absurd things and ridiculous things. I don't know if these stories are true. They're really hard to validate, and I would have to say that probably there might be some truth to them, but they're probably not completely true, because I've also heard stories repeated over and over that sounded slightly different. So obviously people are taking a lot of liberty with these stories. I've also heard that people have used NLP to make other people kill people, make other people rob, or do things that were completely against their morals. And I would have to say that I have never seen this in all my years in being in NLP and NLP circles. I certainly have been around who I would call people who I definitely wouldn't trust, who are really good at NLP, but I've never seen anything like that. Now, there is some truth to it in the sense, if we think about what we're capable of, I don't think we can really consciously act against our own morals and our own values. However, that can be manipulated. So for instance, you might have someone who grows up in, say, a Christian household, and they're taught, thou shalt not kill. And not only do they believe that, but deep down inside, that's what they actually feel. Like, they would never actually harm someone else on purpose or kill someone. They would never, walk out into the street and pull out a gun and shoot somebody. However, they join the military. And in the military, you are sort of programmed in a certain way. And you're put in a position, if you're sent to war, where you're told, hey, those people over there have guns and they're going to try to kill you. So therefore you need to kill them first. Now, that might not be true, but if the person believes it, then they will kill, and they will be going against their morals and their values in a certain sense, but then they might have a higher value or higher moral of survival. By manipulating values and by manipulating context, You can pretty much get anyone to do almost anything, and that is a little scary. And we have seen that in the world, and I don't think it necessarily takes NLP to do that. But we should be very cautious of this, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video. It's one of the reasons why I'm supposedly teaching manipulation, is because we need to be aware of these things so that we don't fall prey to them, or if we're observing someone else doing them, perhaps we can intervene and be more useful. Now, that's not the only, altruism is not the only reason why I'm doing this video. The other reason why I'm doing this video is because we're all manipulating. We're all doing it. And I do teach people to do it better, but better not necessarily meaning better as in to really make someone do crazy stuff. No, I don't want that. So let's break this down a little bit and let's talk about what manipulation actually is. Pretty much today, we all have this negative connotation about manipulation. You hear manipulation and you go, ooh, that's bad. Okay. And I understand. But the truth is that we're all manipulating. We're always manipulating all the time. You have a salesperson who closes a sale and they do it without lying. And we call that persuasion or influence. And we applaud that person for those abilities. Take that same person with those same skills and put them in a dating setting. And they use those same skills to attract someone and possibly do more. And then we call that terrible and manipulation. So what really is the difference? Why should that person turn their skills off in a different context, as long as they're not lying? And I've come up against this a lot because, like I said, I have used NLP for dating. My current girlfriend, I used NLP to meet her for my own, I manipulated my own state in order to not be too fearful to meet her. So I manipulated myself. And through my communication, yes, I influenced her, persuaded her to give me her phone number, to meet me on a date, and then to continue pursuing this until we became a relationship. Did I manipulate her or did I persuade her? Did I manipulate her or did I influence her? And I have been in sales for many, many years, and I've closed many, many sales. So every one of those sales that I closed, did I manipulate that person or did I influence that person? Or did I persuade that person? All of those things. Because manipulation isn't technically a bad thing. Manipulating someone to do something that goes against their interests, that could possibly harm them, or you manipulate using lying, that is bad. I don't recommend that. In fact, that is the place where I know some people are watching this video because they want to manipulate people and they actually have ulterior motives in mind, because maybe they're angry about something or maybe they feel hurt about something. So being able to put that on someone else seems like a lot of times that somehow that can help us, but it never does. This idea that I can share my pain, I can push it off on someone else or give it to someone else so that they can bear that burden, or at the very least they can feel terrible like I feel terrible. I feel alone in my misery, so I want to give it to other people. And that's often how a lot of people who are in that state feel. Just know that if that's you and you're watching this video, learning any sort of NLP technique to manipulate people is only going to make you feel worse. And in fact, not only is it going to make you feel worse, these things have a tendency to come back at you. There's a thing called karma, and there is a very real process to it. And it's basically, I'll just nutshell it here. Consciously, you can differentiate between different people. You can just say, I want to hurt that person, or I want to hurt that person, but I don't want to hurt that person. I want to hurt that person. I, of course, don't want to hurt myself. You can make those distinctions consciously, but your conscious mind only accounts for about 20% of your entire mind. The rest of your mind is unconscious. What do you think is beating your heart right now? You're not choosing to beat your heart. It's just happening. The same as all the other processes that are happening in your body. And there really is no difference between your mind and your body. Different discussion. When you think that you can hurt people and not be hurt yourself, that can only occur in your conscious mind. In your unconscious, it sees no different. If you're hurting people, your unconscious doesn't know the difference between other people and you. So you will hurt yourself. That will come back. And it will seem like it comes out of nowhere, but no, it's a process that you're involved in that is coming back at you. And you can call it karma, you can call it pretty much anything, but I'm just letting you know, if that's what you want to do, you're going to create more problems for yourself, more misery, and more pain and suffering. When you think back to your earliest times when you were a kid and you wanted something, did you just sit back and not ask for it because you didn't think you were going to be told yes? No, you asked for everything. And we're talking like 3 or 4 years old. When my kids were 3 or 4 years old, everything that they wanted, they asked for. They had no problems just blurting it out. Hey, can I have that? Can I have that? Can I have that? It didn't matter how many times I said no to them. They never stopped. And not only did they not stop, they became better at asking. They might put a little emotion into it. They might say, come on, please, Dad, and then make a face that made it really hard for me to say no. Or if I still said no, then they changed tactic. They might cry. They might look miserable. And I get so tired of hearing it that I just give it to them, or I don't want them to feel bad, so I give it to them. This is all manipulation. We start at a very, very early age. We start manipulating. And as we get older and we keep trying new and different things, we get better and better at it. Now, at a certain point, I think some people realize, okay, certain things don't work, or that's not a nice thing to do to someone else, so I'm not going to do it. And then, of course, there are some people who just get better and better at manipulating. Now, at some point, if you want to continue to get good at this, you really have to learn how to connect with people. You really have to learn what rapport is all about. You really have to learn what ecology and congruence is all about. And those are the two that I'm going to focus on here, because when you use manipulation, which you're going to do no matter what, and that's the main point that I want to get across here, you are going to manipulate. You are going to influence. You cannot not influence people. So since you're going to do this anyway, consciously or unconsciously, and most of us are doing it unconsciously, you don't realize, if you're offended by me saying you manipulate people, what you don't realize is that you're doing it unconsciously. If you did not manipulate yourself, you did not manipulate situations and people, you would never get what you want. You would just be completely empty and no one would ever know that you were there. You cannot not influence and manipulate. So let's first accept that, okay? We want to influence things. We want to change things. We want to move things. We want people to agree with us to help us get what we want. And there's nothing wrong with that unless we're harming people in the process, unless we're putting other people at some sort of risk. If we're doing that, then it's a no-go. And that's where ecology comes in. So ecology is when you think about an ecosystem, and let's say we have these different species in an ecosystem, and we want to introduce a new species that doesn't normally live in this ecosystem, and maybe we have a good intention behind it. Like, if we're bringing the species of animal that eats the bugs that destroy crops. And so we have to consider this. Well, what happens when we bring this new species in? Does it destroy other species? Or does it spread some sort of virus and then knock out the crops? Or, there's all these different possibilities. So we need to consider that. So when you're manipulating someone or when you're influencing someone, you first want to check in. Okay, what is this other person's interest? And that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is, what do I want here? And it always amazes me how unclear people are about what they want. And if you're unclear about what it is that you want, and you're not aware of how you manipulate, meaning it's unconscious, this is the most dangerous place to be. This is the most dangerous because the person could harm people and they don't realize it. And we've done this. We've made these mistakes. We've gone after something we wanted. We did the wrong things. We got someone to act in there that wasn't in their best interest. They got hurt. Then we felt bad about it. We can avoid all of this. And we can avoid all of this by getting very clear about what it is we want out of the situation. Then there's ecology. Okay, well, what does the other person want? And if I get what I want, does it make that person suffer? That's probably not a good thing. Now, in some cases, it's sort of like inevitable. If I take the last slice of pizza, someone else can't have it. So at some point, you might have to figure out, well, what is the profit loss on this? And how bad is it if I get what I want? If somebody else is going to go without, like, how bad is that? Is it just a bummer? Or do they really lose, like they don't eat that day or they don't get paid or something like that? You have to assess the situation. Does anybody really lose and suffer by you getting what you want? And then back to getting what you want, are you congruent with that? Or does that act against some moral or some value that you have? And that you have to figure out for yourself. So if you're clear about what you want and you recognize the ecology, that by me getting what I want, no one else has to suffer, no one else has to hurt or really do without. Or again, it's a spectrum, it's a sliding scale. Sometimes by me getting what I want, just means that somebody else might have to do without temporarily, but it doesn't wreck their life, it doesn't hurt them physically, it doesn't make them feel bad about themselves. So you gotta have to figure this one out yourself, and what your morals are and what your values are. Back to my main point, the more you understand how you're already manipulating, the better you will become at it, the more gentle you will become at it. You don't have to hurt people to get what you want. There's a lot of people who actually believe that, unfortunately. There's very much a limiting belief, and it will not get you very far. And then there are people who believe that other people have to lose in order for me to win. And again, that's a very limiting belief. And again, it's going to hurt other people, which will also result in it hurting you. So clear out those beliefs. Accept that you're going to influence, you're going to be persuasive to some extent, and you are going to manipulate. That's just how it is. You've been doing it since you were a kid, but you're not a kid anymore. And because you're not a kid, you can have greater awareness about what it is that you're doing, so that in order to get what you want, yes, you have to manipulate, you have to influence, you have to persuade, but in doing so, no one else has to hurt or suffer. I've made a vow to myself that because there is so much suffering in the world, that I would do my best to not add any more to that suffering. And it's really impossible to do that completely, because everything that you do often will have some effects connected to something suffering or someone suffering. So to the best of my ability, I try to add something better, something more positive, which has also led me to what I do in NLP with coaching and teaching. Is I want to take what my knowledge of how I've bettered my life and share it with as many people as possible, so we can reduce suffering. But there always will be some suffering. And just like you will always be manipulating at some level, and at some times you won't be able to help it. Somebody will get hurt, or somebody will do without or suffer. To the best of your ability, using your awareness, understanding the points that I'm making here, you can reduce that as much as possible, so that you can have as many win-win situations as you possibly can. And those are the best. Like, if you think about the greatest success, is when not only you can succeed at something, but you can also uplift or help other people in the process. There's also a distinction I want to make about using pain when you're manipulating. And a lot of salespeople do this, and I'm not going to name any names, but some big names in NLP actually use this, and I think I know why, because the Milton Model, which is an NLP model based on the language patterns of Milton Erickson, who was the father of modern hypnosis. He was in a lot of pain in his life. He had polio, he was crippled, he had a lot of issues, and he used pain to push him, to drive him forward. And he did extraordinary things, especially considering what he suffered from. And consequently, he would use his own strategies of manipulating himself to manipulating other people. And in some cases, he would use pain. And in some cases, as the story goes, or what I understand, his wife would have to step in sometimes and say, enough, meaning what he was putting some of his clients through. Now, as a result of NLP modelers modeling him, they brought pain into the equation of manipulation, of persuasion and influence. It is perfectly okay when you're persuading someone, influencing someone, to show them, like if they make a wrong decision, or if they make the decision that you don't want them to make, the long-term consequences of that. Anytime somebody's making a decision, we should look at that. What is the worst case scenario, right? It is perfectly okay to say that. I used to do that when I sold life insurance. I would say, okay, look, I want you to think about this. If you're not going to buy this policy, this is what could happen. And what I would tell them was something very realistic. I would just show them what can happen, and that they could take that and do with it whatever they wanted to. But there's some NLPers who go deeper than this, and they use these unconscious processes to inflict pain. It's sort of like classical conditioning. Do what I want, and there's pleasure there, anchored in. Do what I don't want you to do, and then they anchor in some pain. Do not do that. That is one of the worst things that you could do to somebody. And again, it's one of those things, like karma will come back to harm you. So yes, you want to show people the pain that can happen if they make a choice that doesn't serve them. But using unconscious processes like anchoring to anchor in pain if the person doesn't do what you want them to do, not only is that immoral, unethical, again, it will come back to harm you. So this is a difficult topic to tackle. I think it's one we should talk about rather than trying to push it off to the side and imagine it doesn't exist. It's here, we're doing it, we should talk about it, we should bring it out into the light. And I think if we do that, then not only do we become better at it, we become more gentle, we become more human at it. While I haven't been able to really complete the conversation on manipulation, especially as it relates to NLP in just this video, let me know in the comments below if you have more questions or I can speak to some of the areas I didn't talk about. I would like to make this an ongoing conversation. It's been years since I did that last video, and I did a series of videos on manipulation. And like I said, I seem to make, I think like I made everybody angry at me. And so hopefully we can keep the conversation going without anger and approach this more along the lines of like, what is actually happening here and how can we do it very well and how can we do it in a way where we uplift people. If you would like to go deeper into how to become more persuasive and how to become more influential using language patterns, in the description below there is a link, and in that link I give you some Milton Model patterns. And again, that's the language patterns that were modeled from Milton Erickson using NLP. Milton Erickson, again, the father of modern hypnosis. He contributed a lot to the world of therapy. I don't agree with everything, but still, there's a lot there, and he was not a bad guy. He was one of the good ones. So check out those language patterns, and you just incorporate them into your everyday language, and you'll find that it's just a better way, a more clear way to speak and to influence people. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified when new videos come out. Last but not least, if you can think of a friend or a family member who would benefit from watching this video, make sure you share it with them. Take care.